All right, welcome to the 35 IoT Happy Hour episode. Today with some new faces here, two new faces that one out from Balena, but not from Balena, but the other one, yeah, it's a new guy from Balena that looking forward to introducing a bit. But first of all, let me tell you what's on the menu today. So on the menu today, we are going to talk again about balenaHub, which is amazing because we have new applications made by the developer community from Balena. And today again, without Sean this time, because last episode he had too much work to make it happen. We will publish a new application on balenaHub. So this is what Viktor will do during the stream, so you cannot miss how to publish an application on balenaHub. But before that, let's introduce yourself. So, gentlemen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm John Tonello, technical marketing lead here at Balena. I'm a regular here, but I'm not a technically a hardware hacker. In fact, we don't have any of our hardware hackers today, but so I guess I'm the closest thing on that side, although
you're substituting.
Yeah, I'm a poor facsimile.
No, you're a good facsimile. And I'm David. I am a developer advocate, and I am looking forward to learning quite a bit from those two new faces down. Which way are they? Down there.
So, Viktor, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Viktor Petersson. I'm the co-founder of Screenly. We do digital signage. We have probably one of the largest deployments of Raspberry Pis out there, at least to my knowledge. Tens of thousands of screens out there running our digital signage software. And what that means in layman terms is that if you have a need to deploy images, videos, web pages on the remote screen and manage that seamlessly, that's what we allow you to do. And we use cases like dashboards, so a common thing for companies to have dashboards on the wall and then manage this remotely. So that's really briefly who I am, and I've been doing this for quite some time, and been a long fan of Balena before it was called Balena. And that's briefly who I am.
Actually, 12 years ago, I was working on a startup doing digital signage. So I'm sure that we can explain some funny stories about that.
Carlo was as well, wasn't he? Prior doing digital signage as well.
Well, Alexandros was too. I mean, that's where it started, right?
Yeah.
Alexandros was that as well. So yeah.
That's exactly how 9 years ago Alexandros got started. Yeah.
Maybe today to explain the origin of Balena, right? The company.
Today, wouldn't we need Alex for that?
No, maybe we can explain it. Maybe you can search for those slides and we can explain the origin of Balena. David, I give you some homework.
I don't know. I have to go find them. Let's save it for
okay, Aaron.
Not prepared.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Shaw. So I just popped into my head there a second. Do you watch The Simpsons? Do you remember the guy called Troy McClure? He goes, you may remember me from Fly Supply. That was my terrible American accent there. But yeah, so I started Pi Supply doing Raspberry Pi accessories and stuff like that. And then through that, got involved with Screenly, doing lots of hardware. And through Screenly and Viktor basically was introduced to Balena and at the time Resin and Alexandros and then started doing some work with Balena, and then a few years later here I am now proudly wearing the Balena shirt.
So what's your t-shirt? So we have engine here, engine here.
Yeah, fin, mine's fin, but the fin is in like dark purple, so you can't actually really see it on the camera. But yeah, so my new role here at Balena is as hardware distribution lead is my official title. So I guess what that means is I'm kind of somewhere between the hardware and sales side, handling the kind of I guess you call it back of house stuff, distribution, supply chain stuff, and that kind of thing. So so I started in November, and I guess mostly have been working on getting Etcher Pro out the door with Konstantinos, who's developed the whole Etcher Pro product, and some stuff on Fin and various other things as well. And then also, pestering Viktor to get Screenly ready for balenaHub, because I know Viktor and I have his private WhatsApp, so it's easier to just ping him on there and sending him emails.
A couple things. Etcher Pro, for those who use Etcher every day, and millions of people do, to flash SD cards. Etcher Pro is Balena's new offering, so that you can flash multiple devices of different types simultaneously,
including fins.
Including fins and other board, eMMC boards. And I think we just announced that we're taking pre-orders for that.
So we actually launched the page for which will be the official page for the pre-orders. I don't know if I can
bring it up while you're doing that. I have to say, in a previous life, I worked for a small optical networking company, and we used Screenly. I came across Screenly.
Oh yeah,
because we did a renovation and we put up big screen monitors, and I had a couple different proprietary things running on those, that the network engineers have to view. But we had, where we entered a big screen, and I'm like, how do I manage this thing? And I came across Screenly. And I think in the balenaHub, this is going to be a killer app, because there are so many applications for it.
Yeah.
And being able to do it via Balena just makes it that much more fun and useful. So I'm really excited, Viktor, to see the progress.
It's fun. It's always fun to hear random stories of random encounters of Screenly. I've had that happen quite a few times over the years in random environments. So it's definitely always fun to hear.
It solves a great problem, and I think the match with Balena as far as management, with Screenly, you can actually remotely manage it very easily, which is one of the reasons as an IT director that I came across it and was like, this is the solution. I never have to log into my Pi to do these things. But I could see this as a real killer app, and particularly valuable in the hub.
So
I'm glad to.
So this is the pre-order page for the Etcher Pro. So you can see we've got this is the special edition metallic gray, and then we've got the midnight blue version as well. So the special edition one's going to be 50 total available. So if you want one of the special edition ones, on the 5th of January, 9 a.m. UTC, so UK time, London time, you've got to get in fast and get one of the 50. Those will be shipping a little bit earlier, and we'll also have some extra little goodies with them, which I think at the moment we're keeping secret, but I'm not sure if we'll talk about them later. But some nice goodies for the people who go for the special edition. And then, as you can see, we've got all the data here of all the stuff that Etcher can do, Etcher Pro can do, all the specs and everything like that. So, I think we'll put the link in there, and then we can.
Can you show the daisy chaining, Aaron?
So here's the daisy chaining picture. So you can see. Actually, that's a cool thing that I've got on my desk, which I should probably show as well. So if you see the daisy chaining here, you can see that the cables plug in. You've got an Ethernet cable here and a power. So this initial unit input has got the power coming in from the wall, and then it's got the Ethernet coming in from your router or wherever. And then you can just daisy chain them like that, up to 10 up to 10 Etcher Pros, so you can do up to 160 drives, because each one will do 16. So that's the daisy chaining there, and actually you can see there's 3 aligned there as well. Let me pull up my I'm just trying to stop sharing my screen there so I can show you something easier. Yeah, so this came the other day, which looks pretty boring, and I guess it is probably, but we actually got this neat cable where it's kind of, so this is the daisy chaining cable. So it's got two connectors on each end, C13, C14, C13.
Male, female, yeah.
Yeah, and then in here you've got a bag of plugs, which is UK, EU, USA, and Australia. So basically, we can just plug that in the UK plug into, that's upside down, into there. And then you've got the UK plug, and you can do that the same with all the different connectors. But then this cable as well can also be used for the daisy chaining. So it's just a really neat way of actually doing that daisy chaining, but also using it as the main plug. So, so yeah, that's the cool thing I've been sourcing. And these are the first samples that were turned up of the final one. So yeah, that's as I say, probably for some people quite boring, but it's what makes me get up in the morning.
The arrival of new cables. No, that's all. I get that.
I get that.
I must say that's a really good price point you managed to get that down to, because I remember I remember seeing the first drafts of the Etcher Pro, and it was a lot bulkier, and the anticipated price point was a lot higher. So I'm really excited to see that come down to what it is right now. That's a steal, honestly.
Yeah, it's small. If you look at things that are currently on the market, they're big honking things.
Yeah.
And a lot of work went into not only the form factor and the engineering of it, but really, to be practical and to be able to chain them together. I think those three chained together that Aaron just showed, even that footprint's smaller than some of the other ones that are just these massive things.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the thing. So, like in my prior life in Python, we had, I think, 3 SD card programmers, 2 15 drive ones, and a 7 or 8 drive one. And then we had also a USB programmer as well for doing USB sticks. But the thing is you can't daisy chain them. They're bulky, they're big. You can't daisy chain them. And also they kind of are like, they're specific to one job. So like you've either got USB or you've got a hard drive one, or you've got an SD card one. Whereas that's the key thing with Etcher Pro as well, is that you can do all of those things in one device, and then you can daisy chain them. And I think, as John said, it's kind of, and Viktor, it's kind of cheaper than a lot of the other offerings at the same sort of 16 bay price point. I think we at the time paid about £1,200 or something like that for a 16 drive one. So yeah, it's I think Alexandros pushed very hard to have that sort of price point of under $1,000, which I think has probably been a pain point for some of the people designing it. But I think it's one of those things where I think having having sort of like a fixed target like that actually can make innovation happen. So I think like Konstantinos and the team who've worked on the hardware and industrial design side have put in unbelievable amount of hours into actually getting it out the door and thinking about it. And even just stuff where, Konstantinos has said like, 45 megabits per second, not fast enough. We need to get it over 50. We need to get it. So it's this constant push for like just better performance and just, I guess, really living up to the Etcher name is what it is. Because, Etcher, as you said, John, is flashing like a couple of million cards a day or something like that. And living up to that name.
And one of the cool things about Etcher Pro is it has, it's basically a balena device, but it has Etcher embedded in it with that touch screen. So, anyone who's ever run Etcher on their desktop, it looks very similar.
Exactly.
And it follows and as improvements come to Etcher, those are rolled out to the device.
And one thing that I really like is kind of like a circular economy thing is the fact that it's running Balena OS, is running Balena Cloud through Balena Cloud. So all of the update capability comes through Balena Cloud and is running on Balena OS. So it's literally like we're using our own product to deliver our own product. And I think that's really quite a cool thing for us to do as a company, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine that we would be using Windows 95, you know, inside the Etcher Pro.
Yeah. And I think the other cool thing as well is that in the manufacture process, we're going to be using Etcher Pro to make Etcher Pros for flashing and testing devices. And also, we're working at the moment with Carlo, who's sort of does a lot of the stuff on the Fin, the Fin, which, if you don't know, is the sort of compute module carrier board, the Raspberry Pi compute module. So we're looking at programming those in the production line as well as part of our sort of like custom hardware offering as well. So yeah, it should be a pretty awesome project. Balenaception, someone's just said. Yeah, exactly that. A dream within a dream within a dream.
That's really cool. And actually, we are going to have first episode of January 2021. So maybe that's the premiere, but it will be about Etcher Pro. So it will be 3 days after the launching of the Etcher Pro.
So maybe we should leave all of this chat.
So maybe let's keep some of this for the Etcher Pro episode.
Yeah, we're just whetting your appetite for it.
Exactly.
All right, so let's jump into what's on your desk. Let's call Chris to introduce the section. Chris, please.
What's on your desk?
All right. John, you have something on your desk.
You know, I don't. We were talking earlier. I got some Echo shows, horrors. But one thing that I'm finding with these Echo shows, which is, you know, the screen version of the Amazon Echo, I'm looking at it for things that I can replicate that don't have all the Amazon overhead and capability. And, you know, it actually, you know, I run Balena Dash and other projects like that. And there's not much I can't replicate outside, you know, that paradigm. In fact, because there aren't limits, you know, I can use my Balena Dash now to stream Netflix and Hulu and stuff, which I can't quite do on the Echo Show right now. But I haven't been doing as much development work, so I don't have any cool toys.
Well, I'm looking forward to see the results. David, what's on your desk?
All right, let me see here. Hold on, let's see if we can switch cameras.
Should I do solo layout?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Get that out.
What is that?
What do you got?
All right. Well, actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me bring up screen share as well first. I see blurry cam is nice and blurry today. All right. Blurry cam is working great. Let me do a quick screen share.
Trademark David Tischler.
Yeah. Doing a great job today of being extra blurry.
It's blinky and blurry.
Yeah. So I had this thought. I don't even know what I want to do quite yet with this, but I've been thinking about, especially relevant today for Screenly, but there are these cheap tablets out there, these detachable sort of 2-in-1s they're called. This one here in particular is an old one, and by old, what you can read is cheap. And so, you know, I kind of thought, well, this is neat. How could I use something like this for a Balena project? And you can see here, I mean, this one is $450, and even so, that's an old model. So, you know, they kind of go up in price from there. But I thought, you know what? Actually, I don't need all that. What I really need is just the motherboard. And so I found on eBay just the motherboard to that thing.
So and this is the motherboard?
Yeah. I thought, I want to run Balena on this, but you know what? I don't actually want all that other stuff. I don't need the keyboard. I don't need, you know, the stylus pen. For that matter, I'm not even sure if I need the touch screen. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But instead, I thought I want to do some cheap hacking to experiment with, can I load Balena OS on the device? So instead of spending $450 on the whole unit, I just bought the motherboard used for $12.
$12.
Now, with that said, first things first, I needed to see if I could get it running. So I did have to invest another $8 to $10 on the power button right here in order to turn the board on and off. After I had plugged it in the first time, it didn't turn on. Just simply plugging in the, it's a USB-C. Just simply plugging in the power was not enough to actually boot the board. So I had to invest in the power button. So that was unfortunate. But, you know, a couple of dollars after that, I was able to turn the thing on. So now it turns on. That's a great step. And it's got micro HDMI here. So I have it hooked up to the monitor because I don't have this right here would be the LCD panel hookup. And I think this one might be the touch interface hookup. But anyways, all said and done, I see I shot JR. So instead of a 2 in me, you made a 0 in 1. That is correct. That is correct. I shot JR.
It's got a nice small form factor too.
Yeah, it's a really small. You can see the Pi next to it. I'm using the Pi to power the fan to cool the SoC on this thing. And so the USB port is functional. I have a USB keyboard and mouse hooked up, and all said and done, if you don't get motion sickness here, it booted. It
Wow.
It's running Windows at the moment, which is what it came with. Wow. So yeah.
That's awesome.
And the USB stick is Bluetooth for a mouse and keyboard?
That right there, yeah. It's not Bluetooth, it's USB connected. Oh. Hello?
Sorry.
But anyways, yeah, so it boots, it works. The next step is going to be, can I get Balena OS on it? I think the answer is is yes. And then if so, then maybe I'll splurge from there and actually buy the device. I don't know. It seems a little pricey. But yeah, that's an IoT device. And once it's not an IoT device quite yet, but once I get Balena OS on it and I can push a container to it, then it's going to be an IoT device.
So this is the x86 architecture, or what is
this? This is x86. Yeah, that's an Intel Atom chipset. So you know, they're low end. But
and what's that black antenna? That's a Wi-Fi?
Yeah, that's Wi-Fi antenna sticking off of it.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So just some general hacking and shenanigans just for the sake of it.
That's a bargain for $20 though, to be fair.
Yeah. It's a quad core, 1.8 gigahertz, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of eMMC on it. It's going to run containers like a champ.
Yeah.
All right, before getting to our guest, let me show you something really quick that it's on my desk. So this week I received this. Let me try something different. Let me try this. So we are all together on the same page. Okay, so this is the balena fin, as Aaron already showed the balena fin. Yeah, balena fin here. So I have the CM, the compute module, but I also have a modem on the MPCIe, and we are testing for a project, this Telit modem with CAT-M1 that I'm trying to connect with the help of the fin team, but at the moment it's still not working. We still don't detect it as, we detect some USB, but working on that. So remember that if you want to connect something on this MPCIe of the fin 1.1 or 1.0, it needs to be USB based, not SPI or WART or other technologies. So that's one of the things that I received this week. And the second thing that I received this week is these. So some episodes ago, I show a Pi hat with some relais, but it was compatible with the Pi 2. So I had to buy this Pi hat with 4 relays, to start playing with lights or things like that.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to play with that. And Aaron, what do you think? We give Viktor the first turn for the what's on your desk.
Yeah, I don't mind. I can show you what I've got quickly. Viktor, you go. You go.
Okay.
All right. So Aaron graciously told me about 10 minutes before we went live that there would be a section about what's on your desk. So I basically grabbed whatever was on the desk in the shelf behind me. But I do think this is pretty cool. This is actually the badge from DEF CON last year. Unfortunately, DEF CON was canceled this year. And so this is the badge for the conference, but it's also a CTF. So essentially, you have to, at the conference, hack this device, and you get points for doing various things, but there is no manual. So there was basically like a leaderboard. So you have to go to a certain room to get your leaderboard status, because there's no way to do it otherwise. But turns out, like, because of different status levels of the event, like various tiers of events, people had different badges. So if you knocked them against each other, it gave you certain points. And essentially, somebody afterwards basically broke it down and actually figured out how it was done. But it's a very cool device, and they did this to like encourage like social encounter at the event. But yeah, I think this is by far the coolest CTF thing I've seen, at least.
That's cool.
Closely followed by New Relic did something similar at their event quite a few years ago, where they had something similar where they had like foot traffic in the various room based on like sensors in the badges. But yeah, super cool little IoT device that I don't actually know what's inside here. I haven't gotten that far. But yeah, pretty cool.
That's awesome. How many of those did they produce? How many people attended that?
Oh, there was a long blog. I think it was it's a massive event, right, in Vegas. And I think in the tens of thousands of these they produced. Wow. And the hardest problem apparently was I think this is a quartz, the stone here. And sourcing that was apparently one of the biggest problems because they have them in various colors. So yeah, but they basically start on the following year's CTF just as the current one wraps up. Like it's almost a year worth of time. Wow. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, for those who haven't been to DEF CON, I can definitely recommend it. It's probably one of the coolest conferences I've ever been to.
CTF stands for Capture the Flag, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good for clarity.
I like how a lot of these kind of conferences are starting to do badges like that. Like that, I saw one where it was like an e-paper display, and there's loads of others like that where it's like a little game. Or I think it's really cool that these sort of IoT conferences or developer conferences are starting to do these sort of like cool like interactive badges rather than just the sort of like printed thing with a barcode on it, you know.
Yeah, the one I saw most recently was Hackaday Remoticon. Just had one.
Yeah, this is one of the most depressing things of the Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona. That the badge is a 19th century badge.
Yeah, they're still paper badges as of the year before. I wasn't last year, but the year before I went, and yeah, they're still like paper badges for a conference that price tag. You would imagine they would have a bit more budget for that.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Aaron, your turn. Yeah,
I've got loads of. I'm not really at my desk at the moment because I'm not at home at the moment for building work. But I won't go into that. But I've got various stuff that I've been testing, both for like hobby stuff and also for like Etcher Pro. So number one is probably this, which is the Raspberry Pi 400.
Cool.
So you can see there, it's basically a Raspberry Pi 4 in a keyboard. And it's got pretty much all the same connections. So you've got I'm reversed here, the GPIO, and then the SD card, HDMIs, power, and then 2 USB, two USB 3, a USB 2, and then you've got the Ethernet there. So yeah, that's all built into a keyboard. So it's like a really cool new product from Raspberry Pi. So I've just been playing around.
It's still closed. You didn't open it yet?
Not yet.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, I didn't open it yet because I only just started playing with it. And but yeah, I think it needs to be open. But I think there's some good photos of it opened on online.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to damage it yet, you know.
They did was
the other cool thing I've got is this, which is the Pimeroni or Pimeroni, depending on how you say it, inky impression.
Ooh,
Wow, cool.
Really nice e-paper. I bought this as a little hobby project because someone, I think it's on John. You did the
yeah, it's on the gift list.
Yeah, the gift list, and someone from our team said, "Oh, that's a really cool product," and they had been doing a project on like a slow video player using e-paper displays, and I thought it'd be cool to have a play around with the inky impression, doing something similar. So I sort of bought myself one as an early Christmas present myself.
You hold up the back of it one more time. I want to.
Oh yeah. So that's the front. It comes.
Yeah, hold up.
I've got a bit of glare on there, so that they've obviously preloaded on the screen a nice image, and then at the bottom it's got the getting started link there, which is really cool. Yeah, someone's just said it's a giant inky shot. It's exactly that. It's the same board.
The artwork, and the artwork on the back of it is incredible.
So Paul from Pimeroni, I believe, does all of the artwork, and he's actually the guy who designed the Raspberry Pi logo. So there was a competition back in the day, 2012, 2011 maybe, to design the Raspberry Pi logo. And Paul from Pimeroni, he designed that. And then he got started with Pimeroni. And yeah, I believe he does all of the graphics I think he designs them in as like SVGs or something like that, and then imports them into the CAD software. But you know, you can see here, this is a silk screen, but this stuff over here is actually in copper.
Yeah,
so it's got various layers, so you can see it's actually in the copper there. So yeah, Pimeroni do that with all of their circuit boards. It's really, really neat and really a work of art. So yeah, check them out.
Wow.
Very cool.
Breakout Garden has.
Oh yeah, there you go. Another one from Pimeroni. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know how much that increased the price of the product, or if you produce it in big volume.
It usually doesn't matter. It's worth it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you know, the thing with PCBs is, I guess having a bit of extra copper does increase it a little bit, but at the volumes that, you know, if you're doing a few thousand, you're probably talking less than a penny or something. I guess, I don't know. So yeah, I think it's well worth it though, even if it was 10 cents. You know.
Yeah.
Worth paying for the extra.
Yeah. What else it's on your table?
So other than that, I've just got all sorts of bits. Compute module 4.
Okay, cool.
Some debugging JTAG header thing. These are actually bits for my car. I had to replace the window controller on my car because it got all corroded for some reason, and I couldn't open the back windows. But then when I was popping the door in a door frame off, I broke all the little clips, so I had to buy some new ones. So yeah, all sorts of random stuff at the moment. But yeah, I showed you the most interesting stuff first.
All right, so actually, yeah, our What's on Your Desk is getting like main episodes. We only have
if I would have known ahead of time, I would have. I think I could dig out some real interesting legacy Raspberry Pi stuff laying around here as well.
You had 10 minutes. That's way more than most guests get. 2 minutes.
All right, Viktor. So what is Screenly? Tell us more about Screenly.
Do you wanna delegate the screen share first, grab some collateral, or do you want to just verbally do it?
Up to you. I just put your screen on.
Yeah, let's do this. All right. So, well, thanks for the invite, everybody. It is happy hour, so I'm gonna crack open a beer. I know it's not time where you guys are necessarily, but
That's
I think
it's
Yeah,
us
we all live on
weeping.
beer o'clock, except David.
It's definitely beer o'clock. It's IoT happy hour. It's beer o'clock.
Exactly.
On the west coast of the U.S., but the rest of you guys, absolutely.
Yeah, it's misleading to call it happy hour if there's no beer, right? So yeah, here we go. Cool. So what is Screenly? I presume some people are already aware of what Screenly is, but for those not familiar with Screenly, what Screenly is a digital signage software. So we started this actually before the Raspberry Pi came around, and when we started working on digital signage when before the Raspberry Pi came out on ACE PCs. If any of you guys remember them, they were like low price PCs in in the early 2010s ish time period. And we actually ran digital signage network much like Alexandros did, roughly in the same time period. And what we realized that when the Raspberry Pi came out was that the Raspberry Pi fitted as specs for a digital signage device, like to the dot. We could not have designed that board to the specs better than they did. Like it did 1080, which was basically max for any screen at that time, super small form factor, low power draw, Linux based, like all that you really would want to see from it. So what happened was that I signed up for the Raspberry Pi waiting list. I think I got the hand of my first Raspberry Pi. Trying to think, it must have been in like May of 2012, something around that time, because there was a long wait list. And I decided to take what we've already written for the x86 boards and port it to the Raspberry Pi. And that turned out to not be that complicated because OMX Play was already available at the time, which is basically a fork of MPlayer, which we already used behind the scenes anyways. So hacking this together was actually not that difficult to get it port on the Raspberry Pi. And we put it on the Raspberry Pi forum and on the GitHub, and it essentially exploded from there. I think within a month or two, we had our first like commercial requests. It was actually a company operating ATMs in the US, and they were interested in deploying like 10,000 devices already, like on the get-go. And now that deal didn't work out for a number of reasons because they weren't on the IP and so on. But we decided that, okay, we're actually on something here. This can actually be something big. And we started to get more and more commercial requests. So we decided to make a commercial version of Screenly in parallel to the open source version that we already put up. But they started from the same code base. They grew. Currently, Screenly is the most popular digital signage project on GitHub, which is pretty cool, I would say.
Super cool.
Yeah, dragging a lot of, we get a lot of traction there. We are in the middle of, I'll dive into that in a sec, a major refactoring of the code base right now. But yeah, it's a pretty popular product. We have like 50 or so contributors to the project. And yeah, it's been going pretty well for quite some time. And we have been supporting Balena since Balena was resin, and way before multi-containers, when you had to do some ugly hacks to get around running multiple processes. So that's something that we've been working on for quite some time. Just some clarity here, like Screenly versus Screenly OSC. They used to share code base once upon a time. They no longer do. We haven't announced this publicly, so this is probably the first time we speak about it publicly, going to rename Screenly OSC to something else to make sure there is no confusion there, because they are two completely different projects. We are investing heavily in both, but we just want to make sure that people are aware these are two very separate projects. All right, so what are we currently working on for Screenly OSC? Well, those who have followed Screenly OSC, they have probably noticed there is something called the experimental branch that is referenced frequently in the GitHub issues and so on. And the experimental branch is probably a managerial oversight where you let something diverge too far from master for too long and it becomes a nightmare to maintain. In particular, you have to maintain two things in parallel. But in short, it is a rewrite and use a completely different engine for web playback. So we're using Qt's web engine instead of Usable, or use ZBL as it used to be, as we call that we used for the previous version. And And for those of you who are not familiar with compiling Qt, good on you. I would wish them my worst enemies. It is something I've wasted way too much time on in the last 3 weeks. And I got it working this week finally. So yeah, I think it's about
I've tried to
350
include
lines
it.
of bash code. What is that?
I've tried to include it in Balena OS source, built from source, and it's just it's a nightmare. It's a rabbit hole.
So I wrote it up all in a script. I wanted it all to be scriptable. And I think the bash script for compiled is about 350 or 400 lines of code right now. But the good news is that it actually is a one-liner running inside Docker to compile Qt for Qt 5, 12, 5, 15, 2 for all existing Raspberry Pi, Pi 1 to Pi 3, Pi 4. So this is something that I'm actually working with the Docker guys on that as well, because we're using some real experimental Docker feature for that. And it's pretty cool, but I'll probably do a blog post now, share with everybody once that's ready. But the big job with the experimental branch was really to almost consolidate the non-balena and the balena workload, because what we really wanted was to have a Docker compose up for both balena and for non-balena. Obviously, they won't be exactly the same, but very, very similar. So I got the Pi 3 working today-ish. There's still some glitches, but that is very close now. And we're using some pretty cool balena stuff there as well. I haven't really got them there yet, but we need to pass some build arguments to all the different boards, and we can't use a templating system. So I need to figure out how to use the balena CLI to pass on build args to Docker. So that's something that I'm working on maybe next week to get a little bit onto that. But yeah, so basically we're pulling on different Qt versions based on the Raspberry Pi board, because we can't use the same one for all boards because of different graphic chipsets and so on. So that's how we need to pass that on. So on the roadmap,
just to note for anyone that's watching, those experimental things are being worked on effectively separately. So like Screenly, obviously this is at some point leading into balenaHub, but Screenly currently works fine on up to Pi 3. It does run on Pi 4, but not kind of very well. So you can use Screenly OSE perfectly fine still, including on the balenaHub, which we, well, will it be on balenaHub? I don't know. You might find out later. Sorry, I probably spoiled the surprise there.
Might have to revisit it next week. It sounds like.
Okay. Yeah, Pi 3 is already working. Pi 3B plus up to Pi 3B plus, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so master branch works with Pi 3. I did push some fixes for that as Aaron found some bugs. So I did push some fixes for that this week or last week. So that should be still working. Right. And yeah, so on the roadmap, we had to unfortunately disable hardware acceleration because of Qt, because I was losing my mind. So I basically decided to disable hardware acceleration to stay sane. But it does work with Chromium now, so we get much better web rendering, and we are going to turn on hardware acceleration at some point in the near future. We are also improving the API, because the idea with Screenly OSE is that it can be a standalone device where you can essentially just talk to over the API, and that's something we're building out. So as part of that effort, we are intending to move to Django, because that reduced the barrier for new contributors, because it's a very standardized framework and a lot of people already know it. It's Python and so on. So that removes a lot of the custom stuff that we've added over the years. And we are also intending to slim down the containers, because I'm not proud of the Docker container sizes as we are looking at it right now. I think they are in the hundreds of megabytes. That is not acceptable. I want to shrink that down a lot, and also add some more security layers on top of it, which is something that hopefully we'll have some bandwidth for in the near future. And if you're not familiar with Screenly, GitHub Screenly, Screenly OSE, or screenly.io/OSE for the open source version. So those are some reference there resources. Happy to take questions on that as well. But that's my little session on Screenly. Any thoughts or questions? Because I have a small side project I want to do a small pitch for as well. But I guess do we pause for questions or Q&A, or how do you do the format here normally?
It's not so much a question, but having been a Screenly user in a past life, I'm impressed that you've done the hard work of making it easy. It's easy to make software that's hard to use. It's hard to make software that's easy to use. And I think anyone who's tried to have distributed screens and signage and things like that immediately knows the challenges. And it's been great to see the evolution of Screenly to target those pain points, and it just works. And I'm not. You haven't paid me anything. I'm not on your payroll.
You're not. I am.
But it's a good example of an early IoT adoption that really married the technology with the problem to be solved. And I think it's not an accident that it was easy to move from your initial devices to these tiny Linux boards, because the core functionality is form following function. But it's impressive.
No, thank you. Yeah, that has been always one of our guiding principles. Like our internal mantra at Screenly is essentially like if we need a manual, we've failed.
Right.
It should be that intuitive, right? That's something that we aspire, both in the open source version and the commercial version. And that's something that we hear a lot from our customers. It's ease of use. Like you can throw this to someone who's not very tech savvy, and they can still figure it out in a matter of seconds, really. So that's really the desire here.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a neat thing with, I guess, with the OSE version. You might have to do some flashing of SD cards, and I guess that's the really neat thing about sort of moving it to like Docker and also sort of having things like balenaHub available, because it just becomes like super frictionless to actually get from the stage of like finding out about the product to actually having it running. Right. It's a matter of sort of seconds, and then you can manage it. Obviously with the Screenly. The paid version, obviously you've got the sort of web dashboard and stuff, but with the OSE version, actually having that remote management functionality through like Balena Cloud or, and the one-click deploy from Hub is like a really neat feature, because it effectively, I'm not trying to undersell your paid Screenly, Viktor, but it doesn't give you as powerful features, because you can obviously do in Screenly, the main one, you can do grouping of your assets and all sorts of cool stuff like that, but it does give you some ability to actually control the device remotely, which is a little bit more difficult if you're just using the OSD version than the actual paid version.
Absolutely. I mean, that's Aaron, like that's it, right? The open source version it's great for makers and people who want to play with it themselves and build something on top of it. I mean, that's what it's for, right? If you are, on the other hand, a large enterprise and you have hundreds of screens around the world across tens of countries, less so, right? Then you want to have a single pane of glass, you want a commercial support and all that stuff. And that's really that's how we see it. Like there may be some overlap, but it's very little overlap between the target audience for these two products. So we are continuously funneling effort into both projects. And I think we see them as like, partially it's like we want to give back to the open source community as well, because I personally and my co-founder as well, we've been like long time open source users, Linux users for ages, right? So part of it is just giving back to the community and the Pi community as well. Like we've gotten so much from the Pi community. I think I've chatted with Eben about this a few times, that I think we were one of the first one of the few companies that spun out of the Raspberry Pi. So I believe we were one of the earliest companies that actually spun out from there. And it really is snowballed from that forum post on the Raspberry Pi forum back in June of 2012, really. So it's an amazing community out there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And do you have any other project that you are balenifying?
So I have been hacking on this other side project for quite some time. And just to make it clarify, this is not affiliated with Screenly whatsoever. And the project is called Sonar. And this really sprung out of my curiosity to learn more about the BLE standard. And I really just wanted to understand how that works better. So I started hacking on Sonar. And my aspiration was really to create the Google Analytics for the real world. And by having this device that you could drop into an office or retail environment and just passively observe the device around and use as a proxy for foot traffic patterns. So it's out, it's available on GitHub, fairly early days. I resurrected it earlier this year as COVID kind of hit and foot traffic monitoring became kind of popular again after not having much buzzword in the last few years. So I started working this probably 4 years ago. And then I started revamping it this year and adding some more functionality like fingerprinting on BLE devices, because there are some like privacy methods there to like randomize MAC addresses. So how you fingerprint that and so on. So some interesting stuff there. And I'm also looking to add Wi-Fi support for it to do like perhaps overlay these two. And as a cool side note there, like I do have Jupyter support in there as well. So if people are interested in like machine learning and like using this data, there is already support for that in there. So it's a pretty cool project if you just want to spin it up and just play with it. But yeah, it's again, prefix that way. It's early days, still a side project. I have no idea what's going to happen with in the future, but it's something that I have been hacking on the side for earlier this year. So data.io or databat.io as well, or databat.io, GitHub databat.io/sonar.
Victor,
So it makes a lot of sense actually to have on a shop Screenly on one container and the Sonar on another container, right? And one advertising or showing whatever information. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you're counting how many people are getting into the shop or walking in front of the shop.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a number of ways to do this. So one of them is doing OpenCV, Open Computer Vision. Otherwise, just sensors, and the other one is just doing this. But yeah, they all have their pros and cons, right? So, but yeah, there's a side project. Yeah.
A little. I hope Victor won't kill me for saying this, but a little bit of info. I've known Victor for quite some time, and one thing that I always found quite interesting is that he actually he uses Screenly, and I'm not sure about Sonar yet, but he uses Screenly himself. So his family have some shops in Sweden. If I'm right, they're opticians, are they, Victor?
Medical, like clinical medical, yeah.
Okay, clinical medical, yeah. Sorry, my bad. But
that's all right.
Screenly is actually used in them, and that's basically Victor's test bed. So it kind of like
they can't argue or put up a fight.
Yeah, it's full circle. Full circle. That's where it started. Actually, that's where we started one of our early deployments. Sonar is actually deployed there as well for some tests. I'm not sure it's live now, but I did run some early tests there as well. So yes, it is a bit of a test bed.
And Victor, this uses, if you say SNIF's Bluetooth Low Energy, it's basically looking for Bluetooth sources in an environment and counting those as, because they're unique, right?
Yeah. So
is that how it works?
The Bluetooth, kind of. So the Bluetooth protocol is a bit messy. There are different types of. So this is all BLE, right? So that's Bluetooth 5, I think it's from, and later. And 5.1, but essentially it is using that peripherals broadcast a signal to scan for device. So like you would not normally find like a phone unless it's actively broadcasting, but peripherals like an Apple Watch or headphones, Bluetooth headphones, they broadcast almost continuously. So you would pick up on peripherals more so than hub devices, but there are some ways to get around that as well, but not well. So Adafruit has a proper BLE sniffer that you can use, because I'm actually using the chip inside the Pi for this project. But there is a way to get around that using BLE sniffers properly. So, but it's still, you can't get a very accurate picture. It's more a rough estimate more so than anything.
It's kind of this kind of thing has been in the news a bit lately, hasn't it? With the COVID-19 apps that Google and Apple have built with some kind of like BLE sniffing, wasn't it?
Yeah, they have their own framework for that, right? But there is obviously a privacy thing over here, and it's definitely, I mean, we don't collect any data central, of course. It resides on the local device. Yeah, there are elements of that, of course, to overlay here. But yeah, it is an open source project, so people can do what it does.
Maybe it'll show up in the next DEF CON badge.
We'll see.
All right, community. So if you don't know what project to do and you like to do to be part of this analytics for the real world, I think, yeah, that's a really good project. These are the credentials of Viktor, so feel free to bring in contact or join Screenly, right? The operating system edition. So now let's Hubify Screenly. What do you think?
Viktor? Let's do it.
So let me show you Hub for a second, and then you can prepare what you did to Hubify Screenly. So this is balenaHub, actually. So for people who don't know on here, who is watching this video and don't know what's balenaHub, balenaHub you have to imagine as the marketplace for IoT Edge applications. So if you have an application that runs on edge devices and you want to simplify the way customers or companies or developers install it on their devices, this is the right place where you want to be. Okay, so just go to hub.balena.io and submit your app, and feel free to ask us how to do it. And at the moment, actually, you have to know that we increased the number of applications during this week. So let's do a quick recap of what we have on Hub. So we last week, actually, Kyle from Balena, he joined the stream and he live pushed the Bookstack application. I don't know, John, if you had time last weekend to test it or not, but it's like a wiki.
Yeah, I didn't. It's still on my list. I still want to do that.
No worries. But we have Balena Sound that you can deploy it from here, Balena Dash, Pi-hole, Minecraft, the basic station if you want to have the Things Network LoRa gateway. Caps that actually, if you have an old printer that you love so much and it always worked, but now you cannot connect it remotely, that's the application that you need. Just joining a Raspberry Pi next to that printer, it will resurrect it again. Kerberos, Scratch for children to learn how to code Open Datacam, that maybe in some episodes, David, we this week, David talked a lot about the Open Datacam with the Jetson Nanos. Octobalena, if you have a 3D printer, I'm looking forward to have that. If on Christmas Santa brings me my desired 3D printer. Edge Impulse, Cora, and the new ones, actually. These are the new ones. So if you have the Coral TPU, it's on my desk, actually. So there is an application to play with audio analysis. So go here. Well, actually, if you have the Google Dev Board, probably it works as well, as I see here the icon on the works with. So if you want to test this audio analysis with machine learning algorithms and Coral, this is a really cool application. We have this is made by our loved hardware hackers. We have an application made by a community developer called Katilmo, and he made a really cool ADSB flight tracker. That means that I don't know. So we have to invite Katilmo on the IoT Happy Hour because I want to learn how to create a radar at home that detects the flights or the airplanes that pass through on my house. So I think awesome. that will be a good episode. And then we have a new as well application. It's Internet Speed Tester, so made as well for our hardware hackers. So if you want to know the speed test, the speed of your internet connectivity, you have a tester here to deploy it on a Fin or a Raspberry Pi. And I think it's time to get into Viktor's computer to see how to balenify Screenly. So.
Oh, right, yeah. So you did a screen share here. Yeah, cool. So let's just see here. So yes, I'm seeing. So let's look at. Actually, let's do this.
What do you use?
Here we have.
Do you use iTerm or what's that? Sorry for the
iTerm, Tmux, and Vim. Well, a good combo.
Really cool. Sorry for interruption.
So that's all right. So we have the Docker Compose file for Balena here. So this is on the experimental branch. So this has basically the idea is here that we will replace these images with images, so you don't have to build constantly, because it takes quite a while because there are a lot of dependencies to build in. But if you look through the Docker Compose file here, you have the server, you have the viewer, which is actually displays the content. We have a WebSocket server, and then a Celery server for a pub sub. We have Redis for the backend for the pub sub, and then everything is proxied through Nginx on the front end.
Cool.
Basically, the structure here. We can zoom in a little bit on the nightmare that is Qt if we want to, and I alluded a little bit to the fact that it's not easy to compile.
No, don't zoom in on it. No.
It's supposed to be the happy hour, Victor, not the sad hour.
No.
Yeah, I know. But basically, like, it's
close
almost
that
300
file.
lines.
I will cut it. I will cut it on Monday.
Yeah, it is painful to watch. But yeah, it is use some pretty cool Docker tech to build it. I use the multi-platform Docker, which is what I'm working with Docker guys on. So you could do ARM and x86 in the same run, which is actually pretty awesome. But this is our new viewer. So this one is based on Qt WebView, which is a Chromium-based viewer. So those OGs been with Screenly for some time. They are probably aware that the browser we used to use, which was Usable, literally named UZBL, had issues rendering some content, particularly new web pages, newer JavaScript, and so on. This is all replaced now with the new browser based on Qt or Chromium. So that should be able to handle most new things, and we should also be able to display every modern web page. What I mentioned a little bit while talking was if we zoom in on the Docker side here in the viewer. So we're doing some, this needs to be slimmed down a lot because there are a lot of stuff in here that I just threw in for debugging because it's fast and actually fixing it. But what we can see here is these three things are actually highly relevant for the balena CLI. And we pass on argument for the Pi version. And because Qt is Pi version specific, we pull in different versions of Qt based on the board. So in our regular build environment, when I build and push these to Docker Hub, we basically pass that on as an argument, as you can see here. But obviously, when you do a Docker push balena or master balena, that wouldn't work. So, or git push balena, master balena wouldn't work, of course, because he doesn't take arguments. So I'm intending to spend some time with balena CLI, which I am actually yet to use myself, to use that to actually pass on those arguments instead. And correct me if I'm wrong, that should be a viable approach to that problem. And we have to update the documentation about that. But yeah, that's basically Screenly OSZ. I'm not super proud of this config yet because it's a bit dirty still, but we will clean that up.
Like a complex project.
It is definitely more complex than I would like it to be, but there's also some permission levels here that I'm not very proud of, but we'll get there at some point.
But show us the balena YML maybe. What's how you if you want to Hubify, you have to understand that first you need to balenify your project as Viktor is showing us. So you have to create this Docker Compose and the containers and so on. And then next thing that you need to do is to create a balena YAML. Maybe YAML, YML. I don't know how to pronounce it properly.
Yeah, YAML.
That's it. So
which is like an environmental file on steroids. From a capability standpoint, creating one is pretty straightforward, but what it is able to pass to balena platform is pretty powerful.
Absolutely, and the way we've because as much as you guys probably hate it, not every OSC deployment is on balena, so we actually have solved that by using the same Docker environment with an override file. So if we look at the installation file, when you install it, if you run this normally, we actually use an override file. So we use the same template as for balena deployment, But then we have another override file that makes it run on a non-balena environment, like a regular Raspbian or Raspberry OS. Is it now these days? Raspberry Pi. Well,
Raspberry
whatever.
OS, yeah.
And here we have a slightly different version of the same thing that we override some values. The goal is that we want to consolidate things to make the environment that runs on balena more or less identical to the one that runs on a regular Raspbian environment, so that our dev effort won't be duplicated like it was in the past when we had two separate architectures to maintain. So that's something that we are working on, and one of my personal goals was to just make sure that works. So we can run the same containers. We are using the same. We are using the. If you look at the base image here, we are using the balena image for all of them. So that is something that.
That could be really complicated to have one source code compatible with everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like now we have this base image, and then we, if you go into the server, for instance, then we just use that base image where we pull from. And then we have the local department requirements. Later on, I would love to go more hardcore and go like Alpine and just make like binary blobs if there would be the containers, but time.
All right. Let me share my screen again. So if you want to submit your application, we have here a button on the top. So the best is to submit your app, as Viktor did on one day. And some other developers, as you have seen. So actually, if we go back to the balenaHub, we should be able to see, Screenly application here. So published,
nice.
Finally. So guys, we have 16 applications, 3 weeks after the release party. So congratulations, Viktor. We have a Screenly.
Thank you. App. Is that pulled in periodically as well?
As periodically as Chris or Sean press that button.
Fair enough.
At the moment,
But it should, I think, once, if I'm not wrong, Mark, once it's launched on the hub, if you push an update to the balena YAML file, it then will update directly, will it not? For example, when Viktor would, if he merges the experimental branch into the master branch, and it therefore will provide Pi 4 support with the new balena YAML, that will auto pull through to Hub, will it?
I don't know if it triggers a rebuild on our side yet. I don't know if that CI is set up. We'll have to check.
Well, actually, I'm not sure about the answer there, but if you click deploy with balena, so that opens balena Cloud. And if we get into advanced, the GitHub repo that it's reading, it's the original one. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure of the answer. So maybe Chris on the chat if you want.
I guess you can probably override the device type then and just choose Pi 4 at that point.
And
I guess
what it's doing is because GitHub has basically tar files of each repo, it is rebuilding those occasionally. And that slightly lags any new pushes to the repo, but it's not like a days-long lag. But you can, if you've deployed it once and you click deploy with the balena again, it will go out and grab the new one.
Right.
And preserve
you can
environmental variables and stuff like that.
Yeah. You can see that speaks to how long screen been around, because if you look in there, if you click deploy again, you will actually see that we're using balena, the resin prefix for the environment variables.
It still work.
You have to change the experimental branch, but
What else? What do you mean? Do we have any question, David, on the chat or anything?
No, I've been glancing at it. No questions, which means
people were very silent today.
Which either means the audience fell asleep, or the presentation was so good that everything was covered in detail. There's just no
I always push for the second. Actually,
we're going for the second.
Or people are under their desks and drinking.
I know, I'm teasing. They're not sleeping because they're chatting in there, but
I'm not sure I showed JR get slept easily.
So I'm teasing. It's all good. No questions.
What did he say?
So enthralled you can't speak. There you go.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that was let's get into the regular view like this with our IoT Happy Hour tag. So that was all for today. We just published a new balenaHub application made by one of our developer community company. Viktor is currently really cool. Congratulations. And looking forward to see soon your second application on balenaHub.
Yeah.
Let's see if community can help you on that endeavor. I'm looking forward to see more app applications. Next week, we will run the Christmas IoT Happy Hour episode with some balena Xmas projects. So expect some lights, trees, maybe jingles. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what the next IoT Happy Hour episode here. So see you next Friday, 4 p.m. UTC. And if you haven't, just click subscribe, click the notification on YouTube. Don't forget that, and see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.